Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's Friday. The World Cup squad for England was announced yesterday. Before we get into it, I made James laugh because I have no moustache.
He was in the middle of talking about understanding sleep patterns, and I just looked at him and went, where's your Movember, mate?
I fucked it when I was shaving. So I managed to cut a bit off one side. And I was like, oh, shit. And then I tried to even it out. And then it was like a little Charlie Chaplin.
Why did you start touching it?
Oh, I messed up. It was like, I shouldn't shave in the morning when I'm half asleep, basically, is the moral of the story.
You're not meant to shave again when you're on Movember, mate.
No, I was trying to trim around and I just nicked it. Oh. Messed it up. Movember is restarting again today. I did have a tash for most of it. And now I'm going to have another one for another 20 days.
Why don't you go till England get eliminated from the World Cup?
Because that will be before the end of November.
Actually true, it could be.
We're talking about the England World Cup squad today because it was announced
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was, there were a few pleasant surprises in there, I think.
Well, I think the main one, the headline one, is obviously the inclusion of James Maddison, which I kept saying is not going to happen. Like, get over it.
We really
and then it became clear in the morning that he really was going to get called up, and I think to the delight and the surprise of the majority, it's a 26-man squad. Could we find a place for the most informed attacking player we've got? Yeah, I think we can. I'd kind of chill on the idea of what his involvement's going to be. Like, I wouldn't expect him to be starting against Iran, for example. Even yesterday, Southgate said, look, we're bringing him in because he's got something different to what we've got, and he literally used the word, we might use him, basically. So I wouldn't. That's going to become the theme where, and we have to remember this as England fans, we have themes through fandom in the tournament. So if you remember, we were talking about this the other day. Before the Euros, it was all like, Trent's got to be in the squad, Trent's got to be in the squad. And then Trent got in the squad and then got injured in the warm-up match and had to pull out anyway. Let's also remember that if any of these players get injured at the weekend, there's every chance they're going to miss the tournament, aren't they? Someone does a month's worth of injury, there's going to be a replacement called up. We don't know what those potential replacements are, by the way. But even during the Euros, what was the clamour then, wasn't it? Get Grealish in the team, get Grealish in the team. It's going to be the same this time. Get Maddison in the team, get Maddison in the team. So I think if you just like accept in your mind that it's probably not going to happen to start with, you'll find your experience of the tournament quite a bit easier, I think. But I'm so pleased that he's been called up. He thoroughly deserves it.
Let's go position by position, shall we? I think it's the easiest way to look at what we think. I mean, the goalkeepers, no surprises. The only one knocking on the door that might have snuck in might have been Dean Henderson, but only if they were taking maybe 4 goalkeepers because of the 26-man squad. But other than that, you're going to say it's Pickford, Pope and Ramsdale all day long, really, isn't it?
I think if you have a proper injury crisis, you can call a replacement up anyway.
Yeah. Up till the start of the first game, I think it is.
No, I think if you have a genuine emergency goalkeeper problem, you probably could call one up, I think.
Fine. But
I don't think they want World Cup quarterfinals happening where an outfield player has to go and goal or something, right? If you have a genuine emergency, they'll probably let you do it.
But those 3 were the 3 as standard.
Well, yeah, it was only Henderson, or we were gonna go with a tree where we Fraser Forster, as discussed on Tottenham yesterday. No, I think Ramsdale over Henderson is absolutely the right call.
Yeah.
Who would you play in goal?
Pickford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are we so clear on that?
He's been good for England. And he's been actually pretty decent for Everton.
Yeah, he's in form for Everton, yeah.
So I think the experience and his distribution is good. Good shots.
I ask you a question. If, as West Ham fan, if I said to you one of Pope or Pickford's got to play in goal for you for West Ham at the weekend, who would you pick?
That's a good question. Possibly Pope.
Yeah. I was thinking about this with Tottenham and thinking the same. I'd probably rather it was Pope. But I'm quite unanimous at the moment. It would be Pickford for England. Nice. It's just so much better suited to international football. Tempo a little bit slower. You don't have to worry about set pieces in the majority of games in quite the same way. His distribution is clearly better than Pope at the moment. I feel like Pope kind of blew his audition a little bit in the Germany game, unfortunately. But brilliant understudy.
Yeah.
And we're probably in a better position than we've been in most tournaments. With goalkeepers where quite often you felt, oh my God, if we have to play the second one, we're in big trouble here. So, and I think Ramsdale as well, one is better than Dean Henderson at the moment, and I think for his development going forward as well, he has the capability to...
Still a young keeper,
23, he has
24.
the capability perhaps to be number one by the time the next World Cup comes round, for example, or even the next Euros. I don't foresee that with Dean Henderson, to be totally honest.
Yep. Defenders. Now, we knew both the wing-backs from Chelsea were no longer available in Reece James and Chilwell.
Well, I think Southgate really did want to call up Reece James, didn't they?
No.
They both would have been in the squad if they'd been fit, there's no doubt about it.
But other than that, I think the defenders kind of pick themselves, and I think the one that's upset people is obviously Harry Maguire. But apart from that, Trent had to go. Connor Cody's been decent. Eric Dyer, I think I still would have taken, despite current form, leadership, and he's been worthy of it. Luke Shaw's been decent at left back. John Stones, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, Ben White, they're all decent. I think it's just, does Harry Maguire deserve to go?
Does he deserve to go? No, I think most of us would have pulled him out. But again, it's one of them. There's no point kind of overly arguing about it and getting upset about it, because we knew that Southgate was going to pick him, even if he'd not played a minute for Manchester United since the kind of, he had another big error in the Germany game, didn't he? It was never really a thought process to take him out. Southgate is very adamant that Maguire is one of his best centre-halves. You can either agree or not agree, but it was always clear that he was going to pick him. The one that people are really upset about is the absence of Fikayo Tomori of AC Milan. And I've spoken about Tomori quite a bit in the sense that I put my hands up and say, how much have I really seen of him?
I think most people that want him picked haven't seen as much of him.
I think there is a narrative of... A lot of people obviously have seen him and think he's great, and then that word spreads, and then there's a lot of people look at Maguire and go, well, Tomori's got to be in this. Have you really watched Tomori? Is all I'd say to a lot of people. So I would put my hands up and say, no. I saw him at Stamford Bridge, watched quite a bit of that, and he was at fault for one of the goals. I didn't think he played great when he played for England in the summer, when he got a cap. I think it was against Italy. I wasn't overly impressed. So I think the opportunity was there. Should he be in the squad? I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you. I honestly can't tell you. But there's a lot of people be listening going, oh my God, he's so much better than Maguire and stuff. That's absolutely fine. But again, if he got in, was he going to be in the team? Not overly. The one I'm most pleased about is that Ben White's in. I couldn't believe that he wasn't in the last England squad. It just didn't make sense. And especially under this format where... that it's a month long, you are going to pick up injuries. You do need people who can fill in different holes for you. Ben White is probably, I would argue, the most adaptable player in the squad. You could play right back in a 4. You could play him at wing back. I've seen him play that for Brighton. You could play him all across the back 3 or back 4. Left back, even in an emergency, I think you could do. You can play him in midfield. We've certainly seen him play that a number of times for Brighton. So his adaptability... was an absolute must to get in the squad for me. I mean, personally, looking at it on paper, if England would start the back 4, me personally, I'd start him. He played with John Stones, would be the 2 centre-backs for me if we were to play a back 4. So I'm delighted he's got in. I think with Cody and Dyer, what he's looking at with them is if we're going to play a back 3, and we don't really know, particularly for the first game against Iran, I think we know that if England play a France or something, it's almost definitely going to be a back 3. But how we're going to play against an Iran, for example, not so sure. But I think he's looking at Cody and Dyer thinking they're going to play central for me now is possibly how he's looking at that. Now, it might be that if everything's fit, his best back 3 might still be what he knows, which is Maguire, Stones, Walker. But remember, we've got doubts about Kyle Walker's fitness as well currently. So I think he's looking at Dyer and Cody from a leadership perspective to sit in the middle of a front 3 potentially when England play that way. The glaring issue, of course, is the number of fullbacks/wingbacks in the squad. We've got 3, which feels ridiculous in a 26-man squad. And I really think it's regrettable that he didn't look at someone like Rico Henry more in the last squad. Because you look at that now and you go, well, the most guaranteed player to play for England here is Luke Shaw, isn't it? What's the alternative?
Trips on the wrong side.
Well, the alternative is Trips out there, and obviously get Trent in the team. Now, I think we know Trips is going to play regularly enough. His squad is in major trouble if he gets injured, actually. I'm not a big fan of Trent as a wing-back. I actually prefer him as a full-back. So I think there might even be a little bit of that in a back three, we play Trippier at left, back four, so we play Trippier at left back possibly, and Trent at right back if we need to give Luke Shaw a rest, for example. But yeah, it's regrettable. What's the other... If he wants to play a back three and Shaw's not available, what does he do?
Ben White?
Left wing-back. I think he plays...
you mean left wing-back? I think you meant right wing-back.
No, left. If Luke Shaw's not available... He's going to go Luke Shaw left wing back and Trent probably right wing back.
Do a Potter, mate. Put Raheem Sterling out there left wing back.
Well, it's probably more likely. My guess would be to use Saka out there.
Midfielders.
He's probably the more likely. I'm not overly keen on that.
Yeah, midfielders, I think Bellingham, Mount, Declan Rice, and then Jordan Henderson for leadership perhaps were givens. Kalvin Phillips raised a few eyebrows because he hasn't played. But some of England's best performances when you've got Rice and Phillips next to each other and Mount's the third midfielder that can break England have been really good with that double pivot with Phillips and Rice in a lot of games. So and he's good. Like Kalvin Phillips at his peak, if he's playing to the best of his powers, is decent as a holding midfielder there. So I don't really have any issues with him being in the squad.
I think he was always going to be in if he could be fit.
And he's played midweek, didn't
Southgate spoke a lot about him yesterday in the sense that he's a naturally fit player in terms of it won't take him as long as others to get up to a fitness level of speed. But he's played hardly any football for the whole of the calendar year, right? But he does also, I think it's one we've looked at and we said, so what are the alternatives in that position?
GW16
even to the point, it's another one you go, right, so if Rice is injured, what do you do? You really want Phillips, I think, to play. And it might be, and it probably will be, that if he's going to go with a two in there, which he probably will, then Rice and Bellingham's first choice. And I don't think too many are going to argue that at the moment. But to lose Rice... I think Jordan Henderson isn't a natural sitter. It's not. Can he do the job? Yeah, but it's not his natural game. I think Kalvin Phillips can. So I think it's really important he's been called up. Conor Gallagher's obviously the surprise one.
He is.
Which I'm not against because I think he's got a little bit like Maddison, and I'm not comparing the players, but he's got variety in the sense that if you really wanted England to go and do a hard press, he's going to probably be the best at it. One of the things we've always been so pressed about him is his work ethic. That feeling when you watch him, you're like, take a breather, mate. He never does.
I'd be worried if he was one of the two holders, but I'd prefer him in front of them or alongside.
I wouldn't want to play.
But it depends who we play, right?
I wouldn't want to play Conor Gallagher in a football match where he was restricted to not be able to go and chase the football.
Run everything.
Basically, yeah, to be honest. Because he's got an attribute that the others don't, which could certainly be useful. I did think Ruben Loftus-Cheek would be called up. I thought he would be called up because he's played a lot in midfield for Chelsea. So we're talking about options in terms of the two players that can play in the 2-6 roles, if you will. I think he's shown that he can do it. Do I think he's been incredible for Chelsea? No, but he's played a lot. He's actually had a run where he's been free of injury for a while. And he's another one we have actually seen cover at wing-back in an emergency as well. So I thought he'd get in. It's his teammate Gallagher that's got the nod. I don't have too much of a problem with that call.
Yep. Forwards, so the givens, I think Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Harry Kane, Saka, Raheem Sterling were pretty much, we knew we could ink their names onto the sheet. James Maddison we spoke about, and I'm glad that he is in. Marcus Rashford and Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson's in top form. He's a straight out-and-out striker, different to Harry Kane, doesn't drop in. He's more of a penalty box striker. But he's in form, and you could play Kane and Wilson if you were playing a 4-4-2, for example.
You'd only see that if he was chasing the game.
Yeah, but there's certain players that you can't play with each other because they're just getting each other's way. I think Tony and Kane would be possibly a bit more awkward than Kane and Wilson, for example. So, I'm good with Callum Wilson being in the squad, mate.
I'm not against it because I think, again, bottom line, what's Wilson going to be used for? Well, he's going to be used for potentially throw him on if we need a goal, if we're totally honest. And if we win the first two group games and the group's sewn up, then he might start against Wales in the last group game. Otherwise, he's not going to see how much did Calvert-Lewin get at the last tournament. Would he get like 10 minutes against Ukraine or 15 minutes or something? And that's what Wilson can expect here as well. Give Harry Kane a breather. Yep. That's what you can expect his role in the tournament to be. Therefore, rather than having someone that's different, I'd have wanted more of a like, actually. Because I think the chances are you're not actually going to play with Kane much, I don't think. Even that, if they're going to chase him for a goal, and we've got Grealish, let's just say we've got Grealish, Maddison, Wilson, Rashford sitting on the bench as an example, is Wilson going to be the first that gets the call? I don't think he is, to be honest. So I would have rather Tony got called up. Now with Tony, it might be that these allegations that have been going around over the weekend has cost him.
The betting stuff.
It might be where they've decided that he's borderline. It was also disappointing that obviously he got called up for the last squad and didn't even get on the pitch. Was obviously disappointing. But it might be those rumours that if he's really getting investigated, they've gone, we better take him out. It could be. And it's borderline, is Wilson inferior choice to Tony? No, not particularly. He's just a little bit of a different player. I do like that he's kind of the form horse, if you will, and being called up. I'm happier that
That's always the criticism of Southgate.
I'm happier that he's been called up than Tammy Abraham, for example.
Agreed.
So Tammy Abraham, I thought was very harsh of Southgate, said yesterday he's just not been in good goal-scoring form. And I think, okay, mate. But Abraham would look like he'd been the one that had been kind of a constant in the squads and stuff and would get the call. So, I'm not disappointed that Callum Wilson's called up. I just think it's one of them. It probably doesn't matter. Like, I think he could have gone Kane and Rashford and called up another wing-back, for example. So I don't think Wilson will see many minutes.
Rashford is the other one. He's been injury-plagued for so long. But we know what he can do. Like if you wanted someone running in behind, like if Kane was playing through balls like he does for Spurs for Son to someone, I would want it to be Rashford all day long because the way he can stretch his legs, get in, and he's a good finisher when he gets one-on-one as well. Could be devastating in certain games. So Rashford, ability-wise, attitude-wise, no problem. Definitely one of our best at running in behind. So take him, yeah. I
think
don't mind it at all.
Rashford was always going to go in fitness because of his adaptability. He can play right, he can play left, he can play number 9, he could even play as a 10. I think that the ability to be able to stretch him behind is important because I think we had more of that and now have less of that. It's why Raheem Sterling keeps getting in the team, really. Is that ability to do exactly that and potentially be an appropriate foil for Kane. And of course, we may see 3-5-2, which is what England played a lot in 2018. So it's not a system that Southgate is unfamiliar with. Could it be Kane and Rashford at some point in the tournament? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we did land at a period of a game where Rashford and Kane are up front together. I also think if we were chasing a game, he could even cover at wing back as well in kind of a crisis situation where we are desperate and throwing bodies everywhere in the team. I mean, he finished the Euro final at right back, didn't he? Came on to take a penalty. That didn't go so well. Who would have thought at that point that Jadon Sancho would have been almost no one moaning that he's not in this squad? It's been well off, hasn't it?
Yeah. How many are there that they could have, should have? You look at it, Jadon Sancho's really fallen off. Jared Bowen's had a poor season so far.
We spoke about this on Monday, didn't we? We couldn't include Bowen over Maddison at the moment.
No way.
Make a case for it.
Couldn't include Sancho over
and to be fair, Maddison. Southgate's agreed with us, right?
Yeah.
When Bowen got in the squad, it was fully justified in the way it is for Maddison now.
Correct. But I can't think of many other names that have been thrown out there that were like, you should have included these.
Well, I think the one people are most bothered about is Tomori. I think Mark Gay at Crystal Palace has been quite unlucky as well. I think I would have expected probably one of those two to be picked up. Then you've got the likes of Tony Abraham up front. The other one who I guess is going to feel really unlucky is James Ward-Prowse. But as you'd have heard Matt say on Kasha Correspondence yesterday, our Southampton correspondent, like he didn't think he deserved to be in.
No.
He's not been playing well enough this year. He does feel like a kind of full fifth midfielder, another one where a little bit like Wilson, like I don't think he'd get many minutes, but does also have versatility. He's another one, I think, in emergency you could throw at wing back. I wouldn't be throwing Declan Rice out at wing back in an emergency. I think James Ward-Prowse has played the role for Southampton. So his adaptability could have been useful. Obviously, he's great on the set pieces. We know that. So if you got him on the pitch, he'd go and take everything straight away, I think. But his form's not been good enough. No. And then you look around the midfield for, like, as I said, alternatives to Rice Phillips. I don't even know what names to give you. When we looked at what the squad might be sort of 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, We even mentioned if there was a crisis talking about people like Oliver Skipp, who hasn't played all year, just because there aren't many names who you could even consider that could potentially do the role. So James Ward-Prowse is the only one midfield, I think. And then you've got people like Sancho, who Sancho doesn't deserve to be in that squad, as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. I feel like when I look at the squad, that squad could win the tournament, but probably won't get past the quarterfinals. Like, there's good enough players in there. You look at some of the talent in that squad, and you think, okay, everybody plays to the best of their ability. It's a good team. The togetherness, the rhythm, the form, everything's going to have an impact. But you need all of the stars to align for England to go all the way. Whereas other squads and other teams might get through just by sheer quality, even if the form and the rhythm isn't quite there, because they've got some stunning star players in there. We need everything to align. But we've seen in the last two tournaments that we've seen more togetherness and team spirit, and the national team playing more like a club side than we've ever seen before. So you can never write them off. But quarterfinals for me, I think, would be an achievement. Semis and anything beyond, we should be very happy with.
I think the squad is stronger than the 2018 semi-finalists. I think it's easier to almost what we're going 4.5 years ago. We had Danny Rose and Ashley Young competing for left wing back, and admittedly that was a decent Danny Rose back then, and it was obviously a younger Ashley Young as well. We had Tripps playing right wing back, who was much younger and less experienced then. We had a midfield three of Henderson as the sitter and Jesse Lingard and Dele Alli either side. Nico's laughing, right? That team got to a World Cup semi-final, mate. It's almost unthinkable, right? So the squad has changed a lot from 2018. This is where I throw Suj a trivia question. How many players in this squad are different to the Euro squad only 18 months ago?
Are different?
Yeah, of the 26-man squad, how many different
Were they
players?
both 26-man squads?
Yep. How many players different? Can you count that high? Suj is trying to work them out with his fingers.
I'm going to go 5 or less.
6.
Oh, close.
Which is kind of crazy. Those 6 are Trent, who would have been in the squad.
Injured.
Exactly. Eric Dyer has kind of come back in from the cold. I guess you could say he's replaced Tyrone Mings. There was a major Tyrone Mings gamble with the bookies yesterday, by the way, where he went from about 10-1 to odds on in the space of a couple of hours to be in the squad. And a few people even tweeted Tyrone Mings is in the squad. Incorrect. Conor Gallagher, James Maddison, Wilson, and Nick Pope. Other than that, it's the same. And I think he is a safety-first manager, isn't he? He likes what he likes, and he doesn't want to move too far away from it. And again, injuries cost a few, right? Reece James and Ben Chilwell would have been in if they'd have been fit. They were in the last Euro squad as well. It's amazing now. We've had this Trent James kind of debate for a couple of years. Trent missed the last one. Reece James is going to miss this one, and Kieran Trippier is going to prove that he's probably a better option than both. But actually, people are beginning to accept that possibly as an option now, certainly in terms of England and the system. Anyway, what team would you pick for the opening game, Suj?
I put Pickford in goal.
Back 4 or back 3?
4.
Yeah.
4-2-3-1. Trippier, Stones, Ben White, Luke Shaw, Rice, Phillips, Mount, Foden, Saka, Kane.
I think we're close.
Phillips is the question mark. I might play Henderson there instead of Phillips.
Run through it again.
Pickford.
Yeah.
Trippier.
Yeah.
Stones and White.
Yeah.
Shaw.
Yeah.
Rice and Phillips. Mount. Saka, Foden, Kane.
I would play that, but 4-3-3 with one obvious change, and that Jude Bellingham would play, mate.
Oh, yeah, fair play. I didn't even think about him, to be honest with you. I play Bellingham ahead of
for me,
Kalvin Phillips. So yeah, I'll copy your team.
I'm gonna look at the for talking tactics next week. Nico, I want the England-Germany game from last month. I'm going to look at the problems that England actually have with Rice and Bellingham together as a two. And I think one of those problems is, and it's no fault, I spoke about this a lot, it's not a fault of either player. It's just you are handicapping the two players. I would want it to be a throw, personally. And that for me, right now, would be Mount would get a nod over Maddison in terms of left-hand half spaces with Bellingham sort of right ahead of that. So you've got Rice as 6, Bellingham as a sort of in between 6 and 8, and then Mount as more as a kind of between 8 and 10, with an imbalance to the left-hand side, which when England played well in their periods in Euros, they did have an imbalance towards the left-hand side. And that's just why he'd get the nod to start over Maddison. In that system, I think if you go 4-3-3, you can enable James Maddison to get in there, personally. And I think for me, yeah, Foden and Saka as the wide players, for me. The restriction on that is what we spoke about, what Rashford and Sterling can give Kane that the other two can't. Bukayo Saka is improving with it massively. But I think what Bukayo Saka does in terms of his direct running and his ball ability is too important at the moment, and he would play. What I'd add on to that is, and I've said this a number of times, the team that starts against Iran isn't important. It's the team that is got to be right if we get to a quarterfinal and meet France. What the 11 is coming into that, if it's France or an Argentina or whomever, if we get that far, is what's more important. If we go out before that point, then we haven't been good enough, quite honestly. But it's not. It frustrates me when the Iran team will come out and he's got to play. There's going to be more rotation than normal because of the gap between the games. So England's 3 group games at the Euros were spread over 11 days. The 3 group games this time are spread over 9 days. Then between the last 16 and the quarterfinal, if you're fortunate, you can end up with sort of 5-6 day breaks. But it's condensed, right? You're going to have to use the squad a lot more. So the team that starts against Iran hasn't got to be the best 11 that we've got, I don't think. And I think we have to remember that. I think it should be a back 4 against Iran, personally. And I think because the squad is the same, largely, that I don't think he needs to have a whole group stage of playing a back 3 to know that he wants to play that way if we do play a France or an Argentina in the last 8, would be my take. So I think at the start of the tournament, he should play a back 4. I always remember his comments, right, with the Germany game. It's one of my favourite ever quotes from an England manager. I knew that with the team I picked, I was dead if we didn't win. And we won. So I would like to see us start with a back 4. In the bigger games, I don't mind if he wants to switch it up. Saka, for me, has to be in England's best 11. Doesn't have to be in the starting team against Iran.
Nice. Of course, listeners, you all have your opinions and comments. Jump onto Twitter at Planet FPL Pod. You can, under the tweet that James puts out with the podcast, chuck in your comments and thoughts and ideas. Even on YouTube, hit a like, subscribe, and chuck your comments in there as well. A differential show going out for the patrons today. Last game week before a nice break for the World Cup. So don't forget, get your team sorted, and we shall see what happens with the deadline tomorrow, whether everyone shits the bed and the
Can I tell you right now,
crashes.
It's going to crash.
There we go. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Can't England. Cue music, please, man child.